Hi, everybody. I just went through our 826, our fourth discussion about SIOP, and I print all these out. Really interesting stuff here. I think I have quite a few things I'm going to bring up in summary. Since I'm not doing these individual, I want to kind of share my input and my reactions. Laura, you were the first one up, and you mentioned about early childhood, and there are a couple of you to discuss this issue. Amber, I think, too, whether PSYOP really works because of the weak background of your very young children and the step-by-step approach. And I saw this issue about the various steps in the PSYOP. I think that you have to take what works and what doesn't work and adjust it for younger kids. Okay, so actual implementation of this may be Marzano too. I've done some work on Marzano, at least kind of touching up on it because I know Marzano from a long time ago. But in looking at any implementation of a program, there has to be space for the teacher to do what is best for the students in their estimation. And another trend I saw in these papers were people coming in to evaluate you, and they're looking for some narrow step. Maybe they got the protocol for PSYOP, or they have another type of evaluation, and they're looking for something specific that tells them that you're using the steps, and you have to provide visuals or very obvious indicators there, or something you say to the students so that the principal or whoever's evaluating you has said, yeah, they're doing that step. So that's almost like, are you doing what's best for the students, or are you doing what's best for show purposes? That's what struck me. Maybe I got that wrong, and then the fact that, Laura brought this up, is that, and several of you did, that administrators not only switch stuff around every couple of years for whatever reason, but they also do not follow through on providing training for everybody, especially for those that come, like your teacher. There was one example, and I'll get to it in a minute, that someone comes along a couple of years later and they don't quite understand, say, the PSYOP, and nobody really gives them any training in it. They expect them to pick it up. So there's kind of this stream of consciousness approach from administration to where you have different people there implementing what they think is a good idea, but then they're either replaced or change their minds and they come up with something else, and then they don't even follow up on it. So there's not a continuity there. That's the thing that really, Shannon had a really good statement. I like having all the resources, but when they say this is where everyone needs to be on a certain day, you are not meeting the needs of the kids, because we all don't synchronize our teaching in every class, especially if they're all ESL kids. English learners are going to be all over the place. I can't imagine them all marching by the same spot or being in any particular location. That's why you have to have differentiated instruction, different levels. But the same with non-EL kids. So you brought that out very strongly. I very much enjoyed reading these discussions and doing it this way. It's really it's like reading a newspaper article, only the stuff's coming in and you're finding out what's really going on. That's what makes it so cool. Brittany mentioned, and I wrote this note down, you're busy. You may get a lot of stuff put on your academic shelf they're supposed to use, but you spend a lot of time your first 2 years teaching, just surviving. Of course. I hope this thing's focused in right. It looks a little strange. My head's fuzzy. I'll take it because I'll probably look better. And then there's all this stuff about Marzano, and I did do some brief review of Marzano. I saw 9 instructional approaches at work. I won't say much about Marzano because I need to refresh myself on it. But it looked like, what I saw. I know Bloom's taxonomy, Marzano. I don't think SIOP is anything. Well, I won't say whether it's contradictory to Marzano or not. I guess it depends on what your approach is. But generally none of these people are inventing anything. They're just taking other stuff, reorganizing it, packaging it in their own opinion, what they think it is, what they want. Nice quote to Gustavo from Patricia. Said, so as the needs of students are changing, all teachers, not just ESL teachers, need to find methods and strategies that speak to the needs of these learners. I think everyone is starting to realize that cultural connections are very important. And I don't know how strong that is in Marzano. That would be something I'd have to look at. Now, the question of SIOP versus Marzano, and I now have to look into this. I would welcome any discussion about this. I wouldn't mind probably a little further down in the class as we get into more of SIOP, or unless you want to look ahead and put your 2 cents in, I would love to have a discussion online and record it with 2 or 3 of you about SIOP versus Marzano. Because the people in the field using Marzano can do the best job of thinking about this once they've had some exposure to SIOP. I do like what Brittany said about this districts need to keep training each year. All students take the time to train teachers and keep training them, so all students would benefit throughout the district. And you see how SIOP and Marzano can correlate. Okay, this is where I'm not going to jump ahead of anybody and say it correlates or doesn't correlate. Sorry, this thing is a little bit weird. I don't know if it's dirty up there. Okay. Maybe my vision's going bad. Okay. And Laura said every 2 years there's all this turnover. They change things around. And I like that Gustavo found a bunch of SIOP stuff, because I know at Grand Island they used it for quite a while, and then they went on to something else. Whatever those something else's are interesting to me. So I would welcome any input from me. If you want to email me, even if we talk on the phone about different approaches you're using, because I like to explore those. I don't reject anything. I'll tell you, I don't like scripted. Now, you won't take long to get me mad about that. But okay, here's a nice statement from Jamie. Another strength I see in SIOP is that teachers make content comprehensible through techniques like visual aids, modeling, demonstrations, graphic organizers, vocab previews, cooperative learning, I also like how SIOP points out it doesn't just increase students' declarative knowledge like learning facts, it teaches them procedural knowledge. And this is a big issue. It teaches them how to do things and skills, like in how to do a math problem or think about word problems or how to do a project or something. So you actually are modeling it, and kids are doing it, and hopefully doing it with collaboration, cooperation, communication. Because all the time you're doing the SIOP, you're also reinforcing speaking and listening skills. It's not just reading and writing and academics. Kayla agreed with some aspects of that, and lesson alignment with state standards. It always sounds so unattractive to me, having redo curriculum to make all the lessons line up, and then redoing curriculum. It sounds like rebuilding a house after you've already built it. Okay, I'm going to try to hit some high points because I don't, watching this video is not required. I mean, I'm just doing this to give you feedback. Laura, you mentioned something. Well, nice one from Laura again. I just wrote down English learners often have far greater and extensive knowledge of survival skills than do non-EL students, because they've had to migrate and they've had to live in different places and they've had to be latchkey kids. Their parents work long hours. So it really makes a difference there. Brittany, you had the one about where you got 2 hours training on something and then somebody else comes along and didn't get any training on it. It really struck me. And what I wrote in the note is this kind of the chaos of poor planning. It's almost like, and I wrote this somewhere else, a stream of consciousness approach. Or did I say that earlier? Anyhow, it's almost like there's not an institutional or school knowledge of what's going on. It kind of flips and slips, and what happened 2 years ago is almost a mystery. It'd be ancient history. Well, that rhymes. Words our way is something that's mentioned here. I would like to know more about that. Words our way. I wrote that down and looked that up. Follow through. Kaylee mentioned this. Follow through, very important. I love this discussion. I keep coming up with little jewels in here. The important open question that Katie Neerman had. One of my biggest questions about using SIOP is where to begin in my classroom. I want to be able to support all the students in the classroom. Can this model be used with students that are not English learners? I think it can. What are the best ways to take advantage of language learning opportunities in the classroom? That's a more open one. I could sit here and speculate. I don't want to talk that long on that particular one, but Katie, if you want to email me, and then I will, or talk to you, and then from that I will do a video or I'll write a note to everybody. But that's a really important question. That's why I don't like it when schools have different programs in different places. But when you get evaluated on them, then it's really tough. The rigidity, the people have these, that even the SIOP profile about this is, I'm checking off all this stuff. Even when I teach this class, I don't go through every step of it and focus on it. I'm really interested in the first 4 parts of the SIOP, the building background and lesson preparation, stuff like that, the objectives, language objectives. So where to begin it? Jamie, you echoed this too. And now here's a totally different angle. Alyssa, you mentioned you have a text on modification of text in order to make it more appropriate in the language classroom. I have some books on this. In fact, I have one down here. Yeah. Strategies to improve teaching. This is not just ESL or anything. I think it's Kagan, isn't it? I don't know. Somebody put a sticker for Kagan on here. I don't know. Well, it had Kagan all over it, so it's not. Well, it might be associated with Kagan, but it's how to differentiating textbooks, strategies to improve student comprehension and motivation. Now, I've used this as a textbook before, and it has all kinds of lessons, or 1-page or 2-page popsicle sticks for grouping, note-taking graphic organizers, read and summarize. It has all timed responses. It has all kinds of exercises. When I say teaching strategies, potluck reading, crossword puzzle. I'm just reading this. I'm willing to go through this and present some stuff from this if this is something you're interested. I've actually included this as part of this class in the past. Okay. Another rhyme. I'm just poetic today. Blast from the past. Okay. So, Alyssa, I wanted to note that. Some of you, April, mentioned it when she said, I was thinking about cultural maps, and I read your question, Alyssa. I think the cultural maps could be a long-term platform to base a lot of lessons from over a long period of time. You imagine a kid doing a cultural map every year, and they could compare them, almost like put it in their file, except you want it to be visible. I just think it would show how their lives change and how their skills change in coloring and drawing and who's important in their lives. But the culture maps, nice way to base a lesson. Maybe you could get into SIOP using those, or whatever lesson you're using. I wrote with Kayla G. Glinsman. You mentioned a scripted program, so I'm just going to gag when I hear those. And I'm horrified by those. You said you have them in everything except math and science. Sounds like the blob taking over everything. Well, interaction is the key. I'd written on here in SIOP that interaction is the key. I don't think scripted helps that. Interaction among the students, producing BICs as well as CALPs, basic communication skills. And then somebody wrote in here, and I'm really interested, Gustavo, you wrote about, I am lost using Marzano evaluation system sometimes. And so that's why I want to read more about it. And I'm planning on having Gustavo come over and talk to my class next week. Let's see how the weather is. It was so cold last night. I mean, oh. And Kaylee, you mentioned that scripted stuff moves very fast, doesn't allow for a lot of interaction, and that is very true. How do you know kids know stuff if you don't go slow enough, give them a chance? It's called wait time. You're always told about wait time. Well, if you have wait time, then you have to wait. Scripted just sounds like, okay, we're moving on to the next shot in the movie. That's when I hear script making a movie. Yeah, some others mentioned about that. Patricia, you like the labeling of things in the classroom. I love that. I love everything being labeled. You could have fun with that. I mean, you could label, you could label if you have a parrot in your room, or if you have some kind of mouse or something, a gerbil or a hamster, you could label him. Okay. Jamie, you mentioned slowing down. So that's another thing. I noticed that in several places, the script worried about slowing down was very important. Chelsea, you like labeling too. And also, here's something I circled that Kaylee came up with. There must be teacher fidelity for any approach system to work. However, there's a danger if administrators are not trained well or are too rigid in their fidelity expectations. That could be a disaster. Either they don't follow it or they follow part of it. This can be very frustrating because, I know evaluations are very sensitive issues. In university, you guys evaluate me, and with graduate students, that's a pretty fair, reasonable deal. But we think about that, and if you have freshmen and they just got out of high school and they evaluate you, how would it be in your schools if your kids evaluated you? It'd be okay if they, not that there aren't some that are extremely fair and would give good criticism, but you often think, and I think it would be very valuable, but it's serious business. It's somebody's job, so you want people to be reasonable in it. And then Chelsea, you said that you do feel like SPED and tiered students would benefit from the SIOP approach. I think that's probably true. Norma, you mentioned this thing about the different levels at ELL, and you have district curriculums written by teachers who are no longer there because there's been turnover at your school. And then you have somebody had mentioned about snow days, and this was earlier in the first set of comments, and that you were being evaluated. This somebody else, you were evaluated, but the 2 snow days kind of screwed everything up, and you kind of you bit the bullet on that. You got in trouble for that, or you were evaluated on that. So that kind of disturbed me. Rushing through material, Kaylee mentioned that. If you have to race, then what are you teaching? Speed, memorization. Sarah, Kay, you like the SIOP approach. Now, I'm not sure, depending on, I haven't talked a lot about the types of programs it depends on what you have, whether SIOP works with it. That's a huge issue. If you have kids for a couple of hours in an ESL program, and then they go to other classes, you could use SIOP. If you just have a pure pullout, not much time, I don't know if SIOP is going to be very useful to you. I think what you take, it's like everything from Marzano and so forth. You have to have the day contoured or scheduled so that the system you use can be implemented. Okay. And Sarah Karst, you like the SIOP. April, some strengths. Let me see. There was one thing in there. Yeah, you did. April, you taught in the dual language program, which I think we need to have that discussed. Not that many of you get an opportunity for that. I think there's some benefit to use of the native language at some point, even if you don't have anything fancy like a dual language program. Okay, well, I hope this records okay. I'm convinced that I don't look very sharp on here, although I know I'm sharp. I look a little fuzzy on here. So the main computer has not been very kind to me in trying to record things. So I will record this and see if it goes on YouTube and it looks decent.